Now I want to talk about the twist because here's the twist.
So in a 4-year run, we got to domination, but I got to tell you, those first 18 months to 2 years, they were painful. That's the number one skill set for anyone in life. I woke up the next day, I went to my inbox and read letters from women all over the country that were saying, don't give up this fight, keep going. Actually, that's what I should have answered. What is my secret sauce? My secret sauce for anybody building a business is
Welcome back to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. Now, most businesses fail in the first 5 years. Very few business owners have built a company and actually sold a company. And today I have a very, very special guest. Not only her story is absolutely amazing, but she's built a company and sold it for over $1 billion in cash. That is the pinnacle of success, and very few entrepreneurs experience. So Cindy, welcome to the show. I'm so excited. We're going to have a lot of fun.
We're going to have so much fun. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, Cindy, the very first question is, what is your superpower as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, my superpower, absolutely resilience. It's that. I mean, my story is about getting knocked down over and over again, being up against, really what seemed to be insurmountable odds and doing it anyway.
And for you working in the pharmaceutical industry, like that, I mean, going into the business, did you ever think that you would build a business this size?
Oh, no. That's really so important. I think about that, when I'm asked, give your background, give your intro. You know where I should start? I should start with the fact that I've built things from scratch for which I did not have a blueprint. What do I mean? I didn't know how to scale manufacturing. I didn't know how to get a, pharmaceutical through the FDA, but I so bet consistently on my own capability. I felt so certain that I was resourceful enough that I could find my way to the best advice, to people who could teach me what they knew, that I just constantly showed up and did that. And I think for especially your audience, Dan, and wonderful followers of mine who are entrepreneurial, what's the takeaway there? That is, if this is your dream, you can absolutely do it. Success doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from having the courage.
And maybe take us back in the beginning. What was it like the first few years when you just was just getting started? What was that like?
Oh, brutal. The first thing that happened is I had to look around and go, why don't I have a rich uncle? Who's going to give me money to see this through? I mean, that was really the very start because, I had a career in sort of traditional bigger business, and I felt like I at least had enough of a track record or some bragging rights on my accomplishments to go and ask other people to bet on me. I had to bet on myself first. So what it really looked like at the very beginning was me curled up, rocking every time the phone rang because it was a credit card company that I had maxed out, betting on, my own dream. But I think once I got through that and became, got out of my own way of, I don't have anybody in my contact list who's going to bet on me. I became laser focused on who do I need to get in the room with? And if I could just get in the room with this person, then I could ask them, will you introduce me to 5 of your friends? And then when I got in the room with 5 of their friends, I would say, can you introduce me to 5 more of your friends, to 10 of your friends? And that's really how I grew, the group around me that gave me the resources to be able to build this. And then in terms of operation, holy cow, pick a day. What I was making a, huge mistake on. I had one point where my business actually got successful and we were outpacing demand, more or less. Our demand was outpacing supply. And that was from nobody's fault but my own and poor planning. We were exceeding even my expectations.
It's a good problem to have.
It was brutal though with customers because I was not able to fulfill orders and everything else. So it was all of those growing pains like any business feels, I think, at the outset. Finding your way.
I could also see in pharmaceutical, I mean, you could see there are a lot of restrictions, right? You have the government. You got to deal with also all the other pharmaceutical companies. They probably, right? They don't want other competitions. So what was that like? How do you break through, like just break through all that kind of ceilings?
Well, that's such a good question. And I think it is really simple. And I'm going to borrow it from like our friend Seth Godin. You stand out in a sea of sameness. And if you really think about it from a pharmaceutical industry, part of the reason they're so unimaginative and we all watch the ads and think really is because of all the regulation and restriction. And really as the small startup in that space, to your point, they could so easily crush you because of their resources. They can run a Super Bowl ad. You can't, all of those things. So it really became, how did I stand out as doing something different? How did I build a culture inside of my company that really connected with our prescriber base? And they started to see us as the Apple, if you will, of the pharma world. Like we were different. And that difference built loyalty, which was very important.
And I guess from my observation, your focus is very much, it's customer centric.
It is.
Most pharmaceutical companies, they are more product centric, right? Look at my drug, look at my pill, look at whatever it is. But your focus, no, we're going to build a culture. We're going to get support from our customers. It's focusing on that. I think, would you say that's one of your secret sauce?
I think that it is one of my biggest lessons to all entrepreneurs is be customer obsessed. Obsessed. And why not? Like this is who you are serving. And I think in a business that is truly fun to be part of, you are in service ultimately of some customer. So don't detach from that. Don't lose sight. I mean, I have a customer service group who, answers the phone every day. And I routinely sit down and answer the phone. Oh, wow. And I want to be the one taking those calls and hearing. And of course,
do you tell them you're Cindy?
I say Cindy, but what's so funny is the woman named Chrissy, who has run my customer service for years. We're now in our third company together. She will tolerate it for so long. And then she's like, you're really you're bad at this. Get out. She lets me take a couple calls.
Let me get back into my job.
Oh my God, go back to your office. No, but I do think principally that is so important. And for me, having, spent a lot of time in this industry, especially in bigger companies, that really is what drove me to be smaller and to start something for myself because I saw such a detachment. Part of the reason I love this industry is for the profound difference you can make in someone's life.
Correct.
So why aren't you directly connected to that every day? Because that's fuel.
Correct. And I want to also dive into a little bit of the tactics, right? So in terms of business growth, from what was it like? What did you do to go from that zero, let's say, to that first $1 million in revenue? And then what did you do to go from the 1, to 10 and then beyond?
Yeah, I think in the simplest way is I worked my ass off night and day. I was everything. I was the head of legal. I was the head of sales. I was the head of all good, right?
The janitor, the customer service, everything.
I the toilet, absolutely. Everything. All of the above. We sat in a little office with 3 desks. And part of it was really just all of the doing first what I was going to later build a team to help me do, right? I got out there on the road, figured it out.
Selling, right?
Yeah. And I think that was really the first stage. The inflection point for me was that moment when I went, wow, we actually have more interest than I have people on a team to serve the interest. And that was my signal to be able to begin to scale. And then it becomes, how do you, without compromise, really lay the foundation for who you want this company to be? How do you want this company to show up in the world? And then I was really, what's the word? Maniacal about hiring against those particular values. That was
so you only want the right people to fit the culture.
Totally. I would say to anybody, if there is also a secret weapon, I think over time I've gotten to a place where I choose people well. And I think that is because I don't care their pedigree. When they walk into the office, I care if they will culturally fit in what we're trying to do. It's so much more important. You can train against any skill, but that it factor, that real belief in the mission and passion for it, that's what you're really looking for. And I think I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by just the very best teams.
And how long it took you to go from like that zero to the first 1 million revenue?
Yeah, I got there in, so I've built two companies, and I think about my training ground being my
Yes.
first Slate.
First, yes.
And it probably, I had like 18 months of real pain,
Mm.
real pain.
Yes.
And right around that 2-year mark, we found our groove. Like maybe, between 18 months and 2 years, we were getting better, but like that it really felt like it wasn't just doing this. Like I found
Yes.
my groove, and then the curve started to go the right way. And in 4 years, I built the second most prescribed product in urology.
Yes.
So in a
Yes.
4-year run, we got to domination. But I got to tell you, those first 18 months to 2 years, they were painful.
It's interesting because when I interview founders and CEOs, and I ask them the question, like especially the ones that build $1 billion company, and they all, the one thing they say in common is running a $1 billion company is easier than a $100 million company. 100 million easier than 10, 10 easier than 1. Is that looking back, 100,000 is the hardest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, when you're scraping to it, you're just getting there. I can remember the first day I opened my first company, Slate. The first day I turned on the phones and like waited for orders, I got 2 phone calls that day.
Mm.
And that was it. That's the only phone calls I got that week. So I was like, okay, but it is that first little climb is so hard, but I have to tell you, and even so many of my team are still with me to this day, all of these years later, we look back on that as the most fun we ever had.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
So
Those
much fun.
like small team, very intimate.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You guys, I'm guessing probably brainstorming, come to my house, let's talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
this, right? We'll
Over
work.
the garage.
Yes, yeah, garage,
So
chicken
do that.
table, the kitchen table, let's figure
That's
something
right.
out. Yeah, I remember
Oh
those
yeah.
days.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
when we had this out of stock, this shortage,
Yes.
it was really painful because our product required like a appointment at a doctor's office to have a little procedure.
Yes.
So we had to tell people, then they had to cancel appointments, and there was like a ripple effect that was
Yes.
really,
Yes.
not great customer service, which we
Yes.
prided ourselves on. And I think in the classic, it'd be very easy for my salespeople with customers who will probably maybe never meet me or some of the people in the home office to be like, hey, the bozos at HQ got it wrong, right? That's very
Yes.
easy, but not a single one did. They went out and they said, we're small, we're learning, stick with us, we're gonna get this right, we will make it right. And that's when I knew not only did I hire all of the right people, but we were gonna accomplish something truly great together. And we all printed shirts out that said, I survived the great shortage of. And we still have them, I think. Well, some of us still sleep in them, at least me, I do,
Good.
all these
That's
years
good.
later.
That's good. Because that's like learning from and laughing at the mistake.
Yeah,
right?
it's like you have to have, I would say, like, that's also an important quality in entrepreneurs is you kind of have to have a sense of humor. If you don't have an ability to laugh at yourself, you're not kind of open-minded enough to move forward.
From my experience, I experienced this myself a few times. I think in our career, we have one of those, I call that like, it's over moment. Like you feel like, and this doesn't just happen when you're like just doing like smaller numbers, even when you're doing big numbers. It's when there's a moment in time where you feel like, I can't solve this, screwed it, this is over, this is finished, I am done, right? Do you have some of those moments that you could share with us just throughout just the career, and what have you learned from that?
Oh, I got to tell you, my biggest moment was, I'd sold off, I built a business in male sexual health. I sold it off in order to basically get money back. I made my investors a return. I said, okay, give me a little bit of that back. We're going to do this again for women. And I had the government as my decision maker. So they completely held the power. And when I had done all of the work by requirement, I had met all of the requirements scientifically, they just blindsided me by turning it down. And I didn't see that coming. I mean, I was shocked. And I learned on a Friday. And I just landed back at my airport. I was ready to go into the office. And, everyone's waiting there to like pop the champagne because they knew that was the decision date. Yes. And I now realize, I landed at the airport. My assistant calls me and says, hey, bad news. You have a fax here from the FDA. They've turned it down. And I said, don't tell anyone. Because I was trying to collect my thoughts of what am I going to do? And I sat down in the airport, what felt like hours, and I went into the office. I gathered everyone around our big table, and they're like smiles on their face, like ready for the good news. And I dropped the bomb. Oof. And everyone just was equally shocked, lots of tears. And I said, go home and work on your resume. I'll write every single one of you a reference. Because that was it. The FDA got to make the decision. And I, waited till everyone left the office. I went home, I took to the bed, I cried it out. I woke up the next day, I went to my inbox and read letters from women all over the country that were saying, don't give up this fight, keep going. And I reminded myself why I was doing it in the first place. And on Monday, I went back into the office, I gathered everybody around, very different mood. Everybody's like, okay, I've worked on my resume. And I said, I've made a decision. We're going to dispute the FDA.
Wow. And
they were silent. And my IT guy goes, can you do that? And I said, we're about to find out.
Yeah,
and
we're doing it.
He literally put pink boxing gloves on my desk the next morning. And they still sit on my desk today.
Wow.
Those are the moments where you're just like, I don't know. What am I going to do?
Yes. And how long it took you to win that fight?
That was almost another 3 years.
Wow.
3 years. And hardship for the team. I mean, can you imagine that the FDA is the final determinant? Yes. Absolutely. They have that power. They've turned me down on a product that is breakthrough in and of itself. So no one's ever done it before.
Yes.
And I have to go to investors and say, hey, I'm going to need some more money because we're going to dispute the government for women's sexual pleasure. Yes. Can you imagine what those conversations were like? And I really am so grateful that the investors who I had managed to find really weren't only betting on a financial outcome.
They're betting on you. They're betting
on that. Absolutely. 100%. And it's just the ultimate flattery.
Yeah. I could already imagine they're thinking, well, if someone's going to make it, it's Cindy. I mean, that's and I could imagine if they've already invested, it would be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Just to keep going with you, right? But it took 3 years.
Oh, and it was brutal. I got to tell you, nobody knew. I was a privately held company. We were pretty small. The team was 15 people.
Yes.
At the time. Yes. And no one even knew who was Sprout Pharmaceutical.
Yes.
And when I made that decision to dispute the FDA, Nightline showed up.
Wow.
And all of a sudden everyone knew. And it became very public dialogue. So there was not only the pressure, I think, of figuring out how to dispute the FDA, how to really have a better, if you will, conversation with them, but also all of this noise, going around.
Do you know why they even turned it down in the first place? Was it because it's such a new thing, a breakthrough, or was it some other reasons? Like, I don't know, the other pharmaceutical companies. We don't know. Like, did you find out why?
Look, if I'm being the most basic about it, I would just say it's a reflection of how we feel as a society about women's sexual pleasure versus men's. Yes. And I'll tell you why I know that, because the company I first built had one of the male drugs. Yes. And there were 26 of them for men and not a single one for women until we broke through with Addie.
Yes. It's like the story of there's this shoe company that they sell shoes. They send the sales reps to this country, and then one sales rep comes back and say, "Oh, no one wears shoes. There's no market." One comes back and no one wears shoes. There's a huge market, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just so. I mean, it really was. And I think again, they're just humans inside of the FDA too.
Yes.
And so we come to the table with a lot of opinions. My parents, you'll like this, Dan, they always say, "Cindy, could you have not come up with something in diabetes?" Like, because you know what? If you're not diabetic, you don't have an opinion. But this was sex, and everyone had an opinion.
Sex sells. Let's just face it. It sells, right?
There you go.
Yes. So from there, now the story, I know, because it is an interesting twist. After you sold, okay, I got to ask the first question. After you sold the company, what was life like? Now it's like, you've done it. It's a big exit. which most entrepreneurs never get to. What was the first few days like? I want to ask first the first few days, and then what happens next?
I think it was like an out of body experience. First of all, that it's $1 billion cash,
Yes.
Was mind blowing in and of itself. So my bank account had more zeros overnight.
Yes. Investors are happy. Investors are very happy.
Investors were very happy. They were bringing the champagne, but I literally found out and I'm going to get this right, it was a Monday night or Tuesday night, and I stayed in the office till the wee hours, woke up, got on an airplane, went to New York, did some press. And it was like this whirlwind, if you will, of that week, because I announced the approval of the drug. And then within 2 days announced that I'd sold it for $1 billion.
Yes.
That was a wild week. But I will say, honestly, like, did life change? I got up and I went to work. It's what I love to do. My bank account is different, but I was still the same person. And I think it's been a very interesting piece of it. I'm still the one that wants to show up and make a difference in women's health. And so that's how I've kind of stayed the course. I have a financial advisor, and he did come to see me. And this was last year. And he said, he like shows up in my office and he's like looking in the parking lot out my window. He's looking at me and he goes, well, you live in the same house, you drive the same car. And he looks at my outfit. He goes, and I'm pretty sure you were wearing that the last time I saw you. Over. I can't say, look, I think people should do whatever they want with money. Just for me, what I get most excited about having these means for is investing in other people.
And now I know you transition to be even more like a VC. You're supporting other female disruptors. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh, it's so much fun in that I now have this opportunity to change their story. Yes. And women who I feel like are just like me, who show up with these big ideas and are often laughed out of the conventional rooms. Yes. Because of the nature of the products they're taking on or whatever it may be. And these are products that I want to see in this world. So I roll up my sleeves alongside them and help get them to a finish line. And we have the coolest products. The world's first flushable pregnancy test is going to come to market next year. Wow. I've got a woman who has engineered a brand new version of a spinal tap for hospitals. I've got technology that detects date rape drugs in drinks. I mean, it's really game-changing stuff. And it's such a privilege to now be able to not only help them financially, but say, wait a minute, I stepped on that landmine. Yeah, like, yes. Yeah.
Don't go there. I did that already. Yeah, I did that already.
If I can accelerate them to, big exits, what I know is they'll pay it forward over. And now you have the multiplier effect.
Yes. And I think we go through, even with myself, we go through different stages. At first, I started the business because I wanted to support my mom. That was my only focus, right? And then from there, it's like, okay, now I want to be able to provide a better lifestyle, right, for my family. And from there, and then you kind of go through this journey. I think for me, in the beginning, was more like me focus. But once you get to a certain stage, you're like you said, I sleep in the same bed, same house, same car. How many cars do I need, right? I don't really need a lot. And then that's when you shift the focus to, okay, what can I do to impact the world, right? And the funny thing is, Cindy, I think the same thing for you. When we shift the focus to that as an entrepreneur, you actually become more successful.
I agree with you completely.
Money comes faster and easier. Success comes faster and easier because you're not thinking about you. You're thinking about your customers. Right. You're thinking about who you impact. And now, of course, giving back and helping out entrepreneurs. And I do the same thing as well. I do want to ask you, during that period of time, what are some of the advice you have for entrepreneurs who may be considering raising some money, maybe working with investors? What advice would you have for them?
Let's see. Well, look, I think one of my biggest mistakes in my first company is I took money from the wrong person.
Okay.
And I was at that point, like I told you, so I'd gone out there, I generated a lot of interest. I really wanted to build out a sales organization. I needed to scale. Yes. And sometimes you're so anxious for that capital that you forget that you're choosing to. Yes. So if I could say one thing to everybody who's out there wanting to raise money, don't forget that you're choosing to. As soon as they're in, they partially own your company. And
it's like a marriage. It's like a marriage.
Yeah. It is. And so it's so critically important. So that's a piece of it. And then I think I have kind of 3 Ps for, people considering entrepreneurship. And that is Paper towel is my first, because what's a good startup story if you haven't written down on a cocktail napkin or a paper towel, really who you want to be? And that's true. I really did write down, like, this is how I'm going to do it differently. And this is what I'm not going to compromise ever. Like, these are my core values. It's what I hire against. It's what I fire against. So that's the first part. Who are you going to be in this world? And how do you, at every turn, at every crucial inflection point, stay true to that? The second is preach. And I say that because I meet entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you feel this way too, Dan, who, like, they're so secretive. They're holding on to their idea. Like, I don't want to tell anybody because they may copy it. No one's going to put in the kind of energy or anything else that you put into it. Tell everyone what you're trying to accomplish. Get in an elevator, tell them, tell your grocery store clerk, tell everybody, because not only, I think, are you practicing the messaging in an important way, but you never know who's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, I can help you with that. I'd like to invest in that. So I've always been a loudmouth in terms of what I'm trying to do. And then the final thing is the pick wisely. And the pick wisely for me is about, when you are building it, who are you going to invite to come in on this ride with you? And that is not only as an investor, a shareholder, but also, very importantly, your team.
And for entrepreneurs, what would you say to them in terms of how much money they should raise, or how much equity they should give up? Like, if they give up too much too quickly because they needed the money, like, what have you learned from that?
Oh, don't do it. It's actually such a mantra today in entrepreneurship, which is now sexy, right? I feel like I was an entrepreneur before it was sexy. But now in this world, we actually feel like funding is the destination.
Oh, yes.
We see shit, right? They get a check and they're like, they've made it. Oh, no way.
No.
Terror should begin, because you've got to pay that back with a return, right?
Yeah.
So I will say, hold on to as much of it for yourself as long as you can. And that will require personal sacrifice. But you know what? If you're not going to put it in, why should you go and ask somebody else to put it in? And I know you might not have a bank account that allows you to fully finance this, but you've got sweat that you can put in that comes free. You have to demonstrate that before you ask anyone else to bet on you. And then don't romanticize venture capital.
Oh, yes.
They will take disproportionately more of your company. There are so many wonderful angel investors out there, literally in any city you're in. Google Angel Network, Google Angel Group, and you're going to find a group that you could go pitch. And what you're going to find is people who are probably more emotionally aligned to what you're doing as well, and offer real expertise in those particular categories. And they will end up taking less of your business away from you. Do it slowly. Don't just go out and raise the maximum you think you can raise, because you will have diluted basically your ownership in this baby of yours down so very quickly.
Yes. And you may or may not know how to fully utilize that money.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, you don't want to be in that position. You want to constantly be stepping up your valuation, right? And every time I go and reach my hand out, I now have stepped up my price because I've de-risked it. I've further de-risked the investor. I've accomplished these things, and therefore it is a surer bet, and therefore you will pay me more money. And it keeps going. And if you don't do it that way, you really are selling yourself short.
I think also in the tech world, because that's a lot of things that I'm in, the software, I mean, we're doing deals. And I think a lot of tech entrepreneurs, they make the mistake of, oh, I just need more money. Like, you write me another check and the business would work. I said, but you haven't made it work with this much money. Like, you cannot multiply zero here, right? Like, what's going on? And so I think as an entrepreneur, I have like huge respect, because we are the ones, you know, with picking up the phone, meeting with people, going there. And you got to sell. Like I tell them, you got to sell something, man. Go sell something. Right? You
have to go sell something. That's the number one skill set for anyone in life, in my opinion. 100%. Whatever you're ultimately going to be doing, you are selling something. You're selling your concepts. You're selling yourself, whatever that may be. It's a crucial skill. And I couldn't agree with this more. It's actually just appalling to me, some of these businesses that we see, you know, on front pages of newspapers, who had so much money that they squandered. I mean, my greatest pride is I love to show up and, you know, demonstrate what I had accomplished on the, you know, loose change I found in the sofa. Like
Yes.
those are the real warriors. And in
Yes.
fact, when I look at even, the companies I have inside of the Pink Incubator,
Yes.
it's a common thread that these are very, very scrappy entrepreneurs.
Yes. Yes. And scrappy doesn't mean like it's not, no, it's being resourceful.
It
It
is.
doesn't mean
That's
we're
right.
being cheap or anything like that. It's
That's right.
how can we make that dollar go further, right? If
Yes.
you raise a whole bunch of money, oh, let me get a fancy office, let me get the whatever expensive chair, and let me
That's
get all this
right.
stuff without $1 revenue.
Yeah. Focus on the things that matter.
Yeah,
That's right.
that
Focus
makes a lot
on
of sense.
value creation every single day. And it's the only way anyone's ever going to show up and buy you, because
Yes.
you have been, uncompromising in every day when you wake up about value creation.
Now I want to talk about the twist, because here's the twist. So you
Sure.
sold the company, right,
Yes,
for $1 billion,
I did.
but then what happens? You bought it back.
I refused to say bought. I got it back
You
for
got
free,
it back.
and we kept the $1 billion
Yes.
because I wrote a good contract. And I have to say, Dan, like I would not have done that in my first exit.
Okay.
You live and you learn. You do get smarter along the way and apply those lessons. And so, like many transactions, we had an upfront payment and then we had a back end.
Yes.
And so when the first time I sold my business, I had a back end.
Yes.
And it was governed by best efforts.
Okay.
So the acquirer said, well, we'll do our best efforts to, promote it adequately and you'll get a royalty off of it.
Okay.
Well, now wait a minute,
What does that mean?
Efforts, my
Right?
best efforts, maybe a little different. And so when I sold the second business, I wrote really specific things: how many dollars they'd spend on marketing, how many salespeople they would have. And when they didn't do it, I had leverage. And it was heartbreaking. I wish they had done it, but their business had its own kind of turmoil. This was the last thing in. And they concentrated on everything else. But I was sitting on the sidelines, heartbroken that we had fought so hard. Women finally had an option and they couldn't get it. No way, not on my watch. So I fought them to get it back. And I ended up, in exchange for dropping a lawsuit, they gave it back to me and I kept the money.
But I think also the company you sold to, I just don't think they have your DNA. They don't have your culture. They don't have the team. It's not the same. They have the product.
Yeah.
But that's not the secret sauce.
No, it's always right. It's great ideas don't execute themselves. People execute
Yes.
good ideas. And
This
that's
kind of-
the distinction.
It kind of reminds me like when Steve Jobs left Apple and then came back. Wow, left Apple, right? And then came
Right.
back. It's the same thing, because without Steve Jobs' leadership, it's not the same company.
You have to have passion for it. You really do. And in any of your endeavors, I hope in life, it's really that you're driven by a core passion to do it.
What are some of the principles that you follow when you are leading a team? Like what's your take on leadership?
I would hope that the number one is a grateful leader. And I think that in that regard, that I am always willing to do anything that I'm asking anyone else to do. I've probably done it first. They do it better than I did it first, but I do it and I appreciate kind of what the role is. And I think just constant attitude of gratitude that they wake up every day, they pull the sheets off of the bed and they go to work for me. And for that, I give them ownership. That is the most important thing. So the gratitude is, I did this for a reason, right? I wanted to own the value I created. I wanted to own my own destiny. So why, if I invited other people to come in, would I not equally give them shares in the business? And I'll tell you what, it really does make you make choices differently. I have a team that isn't thinking like, oh, I'll put that on the expense account. Oh, I'll knock off a little early today, because they own it. They own our collective success, not only their individual success. So a leader who has created only environments of ownership, whether you pack the boxes or you lead the sales team, you have skin in the game.
How would you structure in terms of the equity for like employees if you were to get like in details?
Yeah, so at least 20% of the company set aside always to give out to the employee base, maybe up to 30%. And I think meaningfully if you were to one day sell it, it should be a meaningful outcome, maybe 2x what they make in a year, 3x what they make in the year, hopefully even more. But I think that should be a target in terms of how you structure it. And I think actually, that's what I should have answered. What is my secret sauce? My secret sauce for anybody building a business is give some of it away to the people you are reliant on.
Yes. And do you give it to like just the management or like the whole company, or how does that work?
Everyone, every single person in the business has a piece of it, and we have conversations differently. It forces a culture of transparency. We're all talking about it, and you don't create these silos where people are really worried about their individual, like, how am I going to get ahead? They're really worrying about like, what's everybody doing? And it's not for everyone. When I interview people, I explain, like, it's not really just that I'm going to hold you accountable, because look to your left and your right. They own the business too.
Yes.
And if you're not showing up in, XYZ city, no one's showing up in that city. So they're going to be watching you. And I think but it creates such an incredible environment, and nothing is better than selling a business and seeing the impact it's made in some of my team's lives, and like how they get to make decisions differently today.
Yes, yes. Because also they truly have that ownership mentality, right?
Yes, to their core.
And what if when you have someone, let's say do you give equity upfront, or you kind of do a period of time kind of?
Upfront and as bonuses. It vests over time. So typically, it unrolls it falls off a cliff at the first year.
For a year, yeah.
And then it goes over the course of a 3-year vesting period in my case. And then of course, in the event of a change of control, being the language, so if we were to ever sell the business or anything else, it all vests immediately upon that exit. And so they get all of their money. When I sold my first company,
yes,
I knew everyone would be a little sad, even though I was always explicit, like, one day we're going to have executed so well, somebody's going to come knocking on our door.
yes.
Well, I don't know what that day is. It's not what I worry about every day. I just worry about doing it exceptionally well and creating value. Yes. And when that day came, I thought, how am I going to tell everybody? So I printed out like Monopoly money that I called Slate Bucks. My first company was called Slate. Yes. And I overnighted them to all the people who were not in our home office. And I gathered all the people in the home office around, and we opened our packages at the same time. Wow. We were on a call.
It's like Christmas.
And it was so great. And everyone's opening it like, what's this stack of money? And I said, that's what is going into your bank account. And I had a woman who works for me to this day. I call her Glow Bug. And Glow called me right away, and she was like hysterically crying, just couldn't catch her breath. And Glow is so, if you could just meet her, she is such a personality. I mean, she sends so many emojis with every email. We had to get a new like server for to handle all of her email traffic. But she called me and I said, I know, like, this is what we were doing. Like, we said we would get to this finish line. And she said, no. Like, and she caught her breath and she said, I can pay off my parents' mortgage. And I to this day, I choke up. I mean, that was a long time ago. That was in 2011. And I can still feel that, because it is the biggest gift back to you, I think, as an entrepreneur. Yes. If you've made your success a collective success.
Yes.
It's kind of what you said earlier, Dan, about how you shift over time, that at the beginning you're proving something maybe to yourself, about yourself, whatever it is that your ambition is, and then you shift.
Yes. I call that shifting from success to significance.
It is. It's so true. And it's infinitely more rewarding.
Yes. And knowing that, I think for them, it's nice to have the exit and they get the lump sum of money. But like I said, at the same time, they might be thinking, because it's almost like a team, a family, right? Now, what? Are we going to work on the next thing? Like, what's going to happen? So when you got the company back, did you talk to some of those employees and say, let's go, right?
And you know what? What a compliment. Like, what a wonderful compliment that they actually had moved on in their life. Like, they too were disappointed. Yes. So this product was their baby. It really wasn't in the market. They wanted women to have it. Yes. And then, behind the scenes, I wasn't really telling them, I'm going to try to get it, because I didn't know what the outcome would be. Yes. And then I picked up the phone, I called them, and I have my head of sales says his phone rang and his wife looked at him and she said, why is Cindy calling? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. and so, I said to him, look, I understand you've moved on. I don't want to be disruptive to your life,
Yes.
but like, I really would love to see you come do this. And they dropped what they were doing and came back to get this right for women.
Wow. Wow. And how many team members you have now within the company?
We're like about 45 right now, and
Yes,
we'll grow by almost 50% again next year.
Wow. And in terms of, I guess, the economy, the COVID-19, has that impacted your business?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's so, some of my folks are out calling on physicians. And so their doors were closed. Patients are told we have stay-at-home orders. Nobody's going to the doctor unless they suspect they have COVID.
Correct.
And to watch their ingenuity, I think, during that period, and actually their shift from selling to service, and how they even helped practices figure out telemedicine, figure out ways that their own small businesses could thrive, made me very proud of my folks. Now, the good news is we also have a digital component to our business. So
now, let me guess, the digital
went
rocking.
Yeah, Addy.com, and I can speak to a doctor, from my couch and have the product delivered to my doorstep. And really and truly, I will say, when people were forced inside with their partner, they were thinking about sex. And if they weren't having sex, they were really thinking about it. So that really kind of saved us that vision that medicine is a digital future.
Yes. And so do you see the e-com being, that would be the huge component of the company?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at telemedicine trends, so, conditions where I don't need a physical exam and I can have a phone call or a video chat, it's been around for a while, but COVID was the lightning on it, the rocket fuel for it to really explode.
In some way, that kind of reduces the friction to buy. Because before I have to make an appointment, I got to drive to the doctor, and now you can do it. It seems it's actually more convenient and faster.
When I came back to this, my the silver lining or pink lining in my world was that I had been on the sidelines and imagined what would I do differently? How has the world even shifted during these few years? And I thought telemedicine was a big piece of that shift. And this is the experience I want as a consumer.
Correct.
So why wouldn't I go down the path, even inside of all of our confines and shackles of pharma, figure out a way to do this? And very importantly to me, the frictionless piece is wonderful, but it also lifts stigma and shame. And there are women who don't do, even if their doctor has delivered their babies, they don't want to say, hey, I have this issue. And so I thought it was really such a better way. And I think that's so true in telemedicine, beyond with Addy, mental health issues and everything else. What a wonderful advance that people can literally text, call, and be in touch with clinicians and not set an appointment 29 days out and be really kind of embarrassed to do it.
Yes. I think that also helps. It also goes back to what we were talking about that customer focus. What do people want? How do they want to buy, right? And I think partially because you understand your customers very, very well.
Yes.
Everything you're thinking is thinking for them. You know what they're going through. You know what they're embarrassed about. All these little things, right?
Yeah, it's critical, amazing. I think, to get to walk a mile in their shoes, or stilettos in my case.
What's your vision for your company in the next 5 years?
Let's see. So I got the product for $0, actually the science. I sold it for $1 billion. I got it back for nothing. I surely need to sell it for another $1 billion.
I love that. And then get it back again in 5 years. That would be an amazing story.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, I think we will at least, get there in sales, and I think we will deliver real value for women. I mean, the best part is that, the letters we get from women who've had real life-changing kind of
this is just from a guy kind of curious asking, right? Because I know the product is kind of known as the Viagra for women.
Yes.
Right? What I can't take it, but can you describe what that is like?
Yes.
To use the product?
So it's not, women know that they're not on demand when it comes to sex. So it's not 0 to 60.
Yes.
You basically are our brain needs to be in just the right place to respond to sexual cues.
Yes.
And for a huge percentage of women, they used to have interest in sex, and it's like the switch goes out. They don't think about it anymore. They're not really turned on by advances. And I'm talking that this is 10% of the population at the lower end of all the ranges in medical publications. And so it basically works to restore that balance. It's a brain chemistry issue that helps you respond to sexual cues. So if women go on the product, really the first thing you typically hear from them if they respond is, oh my God, I fantasized. Like I can't remember the last time. And that we're really wired, men and women alike, to be quite animalistic. We're biologically wired to want sex. And yet for a large percentage of women that goes off kilter.
So they fantasize more. So there's the more, I guess, stronger sexual desire. Is that what it is?
That's it. It works libido. So it's women who are once had a libido they were happy with, it's changed. It's probably causing them actually a lot of stress personally and in their relationship. And they want to do something about it. And I feel like men have had 26 options for almost 2 decades. About damn time women have an option of their own. And so, the little pink pill is finally here.
Yeah, so with the blue pill and then with the pink pill.
That's right.
Which one you want?
That's the same prevalence. Like men with ED is the same prevalence as women with this issue. So it just tells you the magnitude, of how significant this condition is. So
the blue pill actually helps them during sex. Does the pink pill helps them, woman during sex, or it's just creates a desire for sex?
It creates a desire for sex. And we look at its effect on everything else that happens, hopefully during sex, arousal, orgasm, etc. But we're not indicated for that. But we know a little bit about that effect. But like desire is what gets the party started, if you will. It's women's.
I love that. Get the party started. That's what it is. That should be the tagline. Get the party started. That could be a campaign right there.
I should say, of course, I have to say, it's not a panacea. It requires a prescription. It has risks. It has benefits. But people can read all about this on addy.com.
I love that. What would be your piece of advice for entrepreneurs? Maybe they are in a spot where, because COVID-19, maybe they're struggling, they are just having a very tough time, and they almost don't see a way out, and they're listening to you, they're listening to my show. What would you say to them?
I started my first business in the last financial crisis, and I ended up selling it. I got turned down by the government for the product and they were my final decision, and I found a way around it. And I understand just what a hard year it has been for everyone. We were all dealt a blow, I think, that we didn't see coming, but you got to wake up tomorrow and you got to believe in your own capability. And that's ultimately what's going to get you through.
And whatever you're going through, it may feel like it's like the end of the world. You feel like it's just no way out. But looking back, my bet is if you look back 2, 3, 5 years, maybe it ain't so bad. Maybe that was the pivotal moment for you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. I think awesome. Look, I think those moments are really just the universe testing you to see if you're willing to stay in the game.
I love that. It is. Think of it as a test. It's kind of thing. I think what Tony Robbins said. Life happens, for you, not just to you.
That's right.
I think we look at that way, being the grateful entrepreneur that you could be.
Yes.
Awesome. Cindy, thank you so much. If my audience wants to find out more about you and your work, what's the best way to do that?
I hope they'll follow me on all the social channels at Cindy Pink CEO.
Yes. So easy. Cindy Pink CEO. That's awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. I would love to have you back later in the future.
Let's do it.
Yes. After you sell the company for the second time.
Even before that, when we're on the path to it, Dan, I'm looking forward to a part 2. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.